Hi, everyone. Welcome to Province 4-5 Creation Care Network. Today is April 14th, 2025, and we will be praying the Stations of the Cross that with Jerry Cappel. And our prayer this morning, or excuse me, this afternoon, is I will be doing the prayer, and it is prayer of gratitude for beauty of creation. The Lord be with you.
Also with you.
Also with you.
God, our creator of heaven and earth, how blessed we are to be surrounded by the beauty of your creation. We lift our prayer of gratitude as we see the stars of heaven and the beauty of the sunset. We are amazed by the seas and waterways and all that are in them. We are enchanted by the flowers and trees which are clothed by you. We are awed by the animals you created, for the beauty of the earth, the mountains and the valleys, the sun and the moon. We give you praise. Amen.
And
Okay, Jerry.
okay,
You are
well,
on.
I'll pop this video up just for a second here, and then I'm gonna turn it back off because my wife is also doing a meeting, and we are out here far enough, and they just refuse to bring the fiber in the last 2 miles down our road. They refuse. Anyway, so we operate on very marginal. And if you guys have not introduced yourselves in chat, we haven't really said that. Please do, and so on and so forth. So we are in now Holy Week. And we're not going to do the stations, Jeanette. I don't know if I don't know what I ever said we were going to actually do, but we are going to talk about a particular version of the stations that that two of us here, myself and Amy, plus Mary Abramson, who has been on this call fairly often, a deacon in the Diocese of Kentucky, we created for the Camp and Conference Center. And is now installed at All Saints Camp and Conference Center in Litchfield, Kentucky. It's on aluminum plate. It is posted on the portico building pillars, I guess you might say. There's 6x6 pillars, and we call it the Stations of the Cross and Creation in order to try to get across the idea that these are not just typical traditional stations. They carry some extra intention, which is what we're going to be talking about. Amy is the artist that did the images. And Wendell Berry is the author that wrote the poetry. I'm the Wendell Berry fan that selected that poetry and paired it up with Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, who are the authors of the scriptures, who is also used on these stations. So they are not the traditional stations, and by traditional I mean the ones that were created in I used to know that history better. The ones you might be used to that have Jesus falls 3 times and Veronica wipes the face of Jesus and Jesus meets his mother. Those are what I would call extra biblical. They're not in the scripture text. Those are traditions of history, and we selected instead what's called the Scriptural Stations. Pope John Paul, I think, kind of codified those, a few decades ago. They start with Jesus in the garden, and they relate only incidences found in the gospel stories themselves. Those are the stations texts that we're using for this. And we added station 15. 14 stations ends with Jesus in the tomb, because it's kind of built for that kind of piety. But since we are wanting to send a message about resurrection and the new creation, we included the 15th station, the station of resurrection, which is also was given a thumbs up, I guess, by John Paul. back when he did this in the first place. So 15 stations is not unheard of. I think it's just less common. So what we're going to do, I think, and you're all welcome to engage as you will, is we have a brochure that we have just printed that would be present at camp for a group of people, let's say, if they're going to walk these stations, they would pick up this brochure, and this brochure would help guide them. And I want to go through each one, not reading them because we don't have time, but kind of calling out bits and pieces. And Amy, this is where you can come in. Calling out bits and pieces about the art, calling out bits and pieces about why we chose what we chose, and maybe a piece about the poetry of Wendell that was selected, and so on and so forth. And just do that so that you kind of get a sense of what we were trying to do. That's the goal. Not to walk the stations because we don't have time, but to get a sense of why we did this the way we did them. So is that making sense? Amy, you're on board with this? And so on. So let me start then, and go ahead, Amy, you can share a station one. And the rest of you feel free to respond. I don't see any sharing so far. I see a blank. There, it's coming.
Do you see it now?
No, I see a bar. I see a white bar. And that could be on my side. Are the rest of you seeing it?
Nope.
It looks like, yeah, it's not rendering.
It says that I am screen sharing and I.
Yeah, you are. Yeah, the screen you have is covered, I bet you, by your Zoom.
Okay, hang on, more hide video panel. Is that better?
No.
Uh-oh. Well, it says that I'm sharing and I see, but I don't know what to do.
Yeah, I've seen this before in Zoom where it might be well, it's not your share thing. There's another small window that sits up. So let's see if you Control Alt Delete. I'm trying to think to pull up, make sure that you're doing a PDF, right? So that's probably being run in your browser, right? So make sure your browser screen is at the top of the stack. That is not being hidden. I see it behind something. I see it behind a black box, and I think that black box is Zoom.
Huh. I will tell you that, well, let me try one different thing. Is that better? Or
you could try to minimize everything, but make sure you've minimized everything but and if nothing else, I'll just do it, and hopefully
yeah,
will survive.
I got a new monitor, and ever since then, like, it keeps saying that it's paused until I maximize it. I'm sorry, like, I don't think.
Okay. Well, I'll share then.
Then
You proceed. You go ahead and give me this back, and then if you figure it out, let me know. And if Gene complains to me, we'll have to do something, but I'll share this. And maybe, okay, you guys seeing that? Station 1, Jesus in the garden. Yes, I see a thumbs up. All right. So there's a few things to notice as you go through these. So the art, that what you see on the left in this case, this is the heron. This is Amy's work. And so it's mostly figurative artwork. Some of it is more literal, and some of it is quite figurative. But it does honor the entirety of the natural world. This is why we said and creation. Traditional Stations of the Cross are pretty much devoid of creation, the versions that I see, and certainly the old ones that you see posted in sanctuaries and hallways of churches. It's a completely human drama, as if we are the only thing that matters. And so for one, we're after, no, this is not a completely human drama. The events that were taking place that week, the whole week of Holy Week, consumes and takes up all creation in both its blessing and its violence. Jesus was exploited, but he wasn't the only thing being exploited on the scene. And the violence was not just human to human violence. That violence that takes place is that the empire that executed that violence is executing violence, for the whole planet. And so we kind of wanted to not let you miss that point as you go through these stations. So it juxtaposes the events of Holy Week with the ecological parallel. And then each station inspires broad personal reflections upon humanity, sin, and grace. That's Wendell Berry selections. Of course, Wendell was not writing about Holy Week. Wendell was just writing about life and the human condition and all the things that he would write as a poet. And so sometimes those poems are pretty narrowly focused in the given moment. It's picking one aspect of what's happening in this scene. And that's fine. It's still, we think he's poignant. And sometimes that's the best you can do in a moment like that is kind of notice one thing. And then let everybody, let people who experience it carry it where they will. So we're not trying to be everything for everybody. We're not even trying to do that. And then the prayers, I wrote all the collects, and they each one, there's some version of confession, because we are complicit in this whole story. This is not just the story of Jesus and what he suffered. This is the story of the world's suffering and our complicity in it. The Romans are not the only ones being violent. We're still being violent. And I think especially in our moment in the United States in April of 2025, this should come achingly and piercingly clear that Holy Week is still going on. And so that, and then there's 15 stations, because we want to include the resurrection moment. So the brochure recommends kind of 4 levels of reading. It's the journey of Jesus, yes, but it's also each one of ours. We have a version of this. We are in this story either as participant or perpetrator or victim or lover. This is also a story about us, and it's also a story about others who are also perpetrators or victims or lovers or heroes. In other words, Holy Week is still going on. And also all creation is caught in this enduring reality of sin, suffering, and redemption. All right, so that's sort of the background we give to folks. And so here we begin. So Jesus in the garden. And Amy's image of the blue heron. Jesus chose to go to a garden in this moment of personal crisis, of enormous, he just got off the Lord's Supper. Peter promises never to fail. Judas has already snuck out the back. He's washed their feet and they don't get it. And so he's carrying all of this to the garden, and that's where Wendell kind of is. When the despair of the world grows in me and I wake at night and the least sound of fear what my life and my children's lives might be. The question, I guess, is that where Jesus was too? I go and lie down where the wood drake rests in the beauty of the water, and so he goes to a garden. Was this what he was feeling? And that's the is that what this first station, is this his moment that You know, did Jesus go to rest in the grace of the world and seek some both clarity and freedom? Is that what was going on? So that's station number 1. Station number 2, Jesus is betrayed. Amy, I love the expressions here. Closed eyes both, as if neither one are capable of actually looking the truth straight in the eye. In this moment, right? What is you see the downcastness and the willing acceptance on the face of Jesus here. And Judas kind of like doing the motions that he feels like he needs to do, but the hypocrisy and the complicity of it in his, I think, captured in his closed eyes. And so it comes up, you know, to kiss him. And Wendell's Sabbath poem, if we've become a people incapable of thought, and then the brute thought of mere power and mere greed will think for us. Is that what was going on with Judas? By then, he's already given coin that he will later throw away. He's already decided that the right horse to back is with the Jewish leaders and the Roman authorities. You know, he's already been calculating. And when we cease from human thought, which, if we believe Jesus is the most human of all humans, then to think like Jesus is the most human thing to do. For Judas to betray that, he had to shut his humanity down. And so when we cease from human thought, a low and effective cunning stirs in the most inhuman minds. And if that isn't what is going on in Washington right now, I don't know what is. That this is this right here. And they do it wearing crosses and flailing Bibles around. If this isn't that moment, and so this cunning, mere greed and power doing the thinking. So that. Amy, I'm just talking. Anybody else, in fact, if you guys want to break, I can't see very well either. I've got sunlight backlighting, so not a good choice on my part. So go ahead, feel free to speak up if you need to, or somebody, Jeanette, I guess, if you can see people's hands better than I, you know, be sure to let people speak up. Station 3, Peter denies Jesus. I also love this, Amy, and the expression on Jesus' face. It's I think, a great contemplation to ask, what was he feeling with this expression? Was it resignation? Was it anger? Was it deep disappointment? Was it compassion? You know, oh, Peter kind of look. Jesus, that Jesus looked, a lot of it's depicted as Jesus was standing over at a distance, and when that crow called, Jesus turned and looked Peter's way. What was the look on his face when that happened? So and Wendell writes, suppose the day began in wrath at circumstance or anger at one's friends. Is that not where Peter's day began? Everything is going to hell in a handbasket. Is Peter thinking, idiots, fools, what have I been thinking? What am I doing here? of anger at one's friends and vain self-innocence falls to the very light, or anger at oneself, whose controverting will would have the sun stand still. The world is lost in loss of patience. Is this a moment of exactly that? Peter is done with it. Jesus, I have tried for 3 years to make sense out of you. I'm done with it. I don't know the man. I can hear that as actually a truthful statement. I don't know him. Do you understand him? I've been trying for 3 years and I can't figure him out. Creation is defied, all order unstopped, all light and singing stopped. Is that what this moment was? I love this one. Jesus before Pilate. This one is worth just reading. Hate has no world. The people of hate must try to possess the world of love. Is that what's going on? For it is the only world. It is heaven and earth. But as lonely, eager hate possesses it, it disappears. It never did exist. And hate must seek another world that love has made. Is that not also what's going on in front of our very eyes in spades in this country? Hate seeking to possess the world of love. And I love the image here of, again, what is Jesus thinking? And he seems fragile here, kind of clay, where Pilate is of stone, and the empire is of stone, and cold. You can just feel how cold that is. And this grasp that that he's using, because that's what he knows how to use. That's what he has to. And this is also what we see: cold hate seeking to possess love in that moment. Jesus stripped and crowned. This is the first one where it is a totally non-human representative of the violence and the victimhood of the violence. And probably also worth reading straight out. Before we kill another child for righteousness' sake, to serve some blissful killer's sacred cause, some bloody patriot's anthem and his flag. Is that not also describing our day? Let us leave forever our ancestral land, our holy books, our God thoughtified to the mean of our smallest selves. Let us go to the graveyard and lie down forever among the speechless stones. If our ideals are going to lead us to and mockery, the crowning of they had him flogged and then they put him in a purple robe. One of the icons of this to me is pickup truck advertising, where they just glorify the great outdoors, and you can go out to the great outdoors in your enormous chunk of steel, which destroys everything under its tires and is destroying everything with its exhaust. And it's just, to me, an icon of this very thing. And then, of course, what we're doing in Gaza is also an illustration, I think, of this very thing. And on it goes. Salmon in an up, salmon on a run, right? Jesus taking up a cross. Jesus had to bear, he had to carry, it was put on him and he carried it, just as the salmon do. They bear that end of life run to keep life going. Just as Jesus took up his cross to keep life going, so do they. And all in the, that blue cast on the water, depends how you read it. Amy, I don't know what you put it there for. It could look like copper mine pollution, that we are making their lives difficult by poisoning the very water that they have to run up, but run up they still do. And so on. And do the lords of war actually love the things they destroy? It's a great question from Wendell. This is one of Amy's favorites.
Can you scroll down, Jerry? Can you,
Oh yes, you need the bling.
make the images smaller a little bit or something? Because you're cutting off part of it. But that's fine. The way
Yeah, it depends how visible it is. If I go this much,
that's
is that all
fine. Yeah, there you go.
right? They compelled a passerby who was coming home from the country to carry his cross. It was Simon of Cyrene, father of Alexander and Rufus, who was a foreigner. And so the races and the sexes now intermingled perfectly in the pursuit of the objective being, in our day and theirs, the economy. It's all in pursuit of the economy. Everything at the cost and the price of the economy. They compel servitude, which is what happened in that moment. And you'll notice, if you probably can't see it very well. If you were looking at the full image, you would notice that he is actually wearing a diamond cross down there, and just the bottom of his, on his throat down there. And which I think is, it's sort of bling. And we're still doing it in the name of the objective. And we're wearing crosses. And those who are actually caught up in the objective are wearing crosses. That. Is this it's going so far? I feel like I'm just sitting here talking, and I'm not sure. I can't see and hear well enough to know whether this is working, but I guess we're getting through it.
It's working.
Okay.
I mean, we can see it.
Right.
It's on there.
Yep.
Jesus meets the women. And they're weeping, and Jesus turns to them and says, "Don't weep for me. It's you that they're coming for. If they do this when the wood is green," which is him, right? The most innocent, the most empowered, the most pure and true. If they do it to him, what are they going to do when the wood is dry? What are they going to do to you if they're doing this to me? But I think that one of the most beautiful thing about the women in this storytelling is their loyalty. And that's what we picked up on Wendell's poetry. Whatever happens, those who have learned to love one another have made their way into the lasting world and will not leave, whatever happens, which is what we see in the story. They do not and will not leave. And so in the image, even with the woman kind of being erased and whatever suffering and pain that they are bearing, they do have each other. They are together. Then Jesus is crucified. This is one of the favorite images of the dean of the cathedral. This is about forgiveness. So Jesus, says, Father, forgive them, for they do not know what they're doing. And the image, if you haven't noticed, is elephants standing on the horizon over a valley of elephant tusks. And if ever there is a need for forgiveness, that's one of those places. And if you're not to become a monster, you must care what they think. If you care what they think, how will you not hate them? And so become a monster of the opposite kind. From where then is love to come? Love for your enemy, that is the way of liberty. From forgiveness, forgiven, they go free of you. And so I guess that's what's captured, I think, in the elephants walking. They are walking free of the violence and exploitation visited upon them. Jesus, too, as he hangs there, is free of them. Not in an abandonment, but in the depth of forgiveness. He remains free even while in the middle of the monstrosity being inflicted upon him. And in the same way, really, two criminals, it's kind of the same essence, I think. When the one, is, sort of ridiculing him, but the other one actually shows a genuine understanding and an entrance into paradise. Jesus granted in some ways what he had already gained. So do not live for death, pay it no fear or wonder. It's the firmest law of the truest faith. Death is the dew that wets the grass in the early morning dark. It is God's entirely. Withdraw your fatal homage and live, which we do see again, Jesus even in this moment, he lived his entire life that way. Do not live for death. He lives his entire life not living for death, paying it no homage. And then this is the moment here where he took another with him, I guess. I'm also assuming actually he took them both.
There's a foot in there if you didn't notice.
I have not probably noticed.
So there's a large hand, which
Grasping the other.
it's meant to be Jesus.
Yes.
Then the small hand and the foot, the pink foot, are the two criminals.
Oh, okay. I would expect Jesus to take them both.
And it's a sort of an homage to Albrecht Dührer's Christ in Limbo, or the Harrowing of Hell. All the images where Jesus grabs Adam, goes into Hades and grabs Adam and Eve by the wrists, pulls them out, and takes them with him. So that's what, anyway, that's what.
Yeah, inspiration for that or whatever. Yeah. Yeah. Mary given to John. To care for what we know requires care for what we don't. In other words, in this moment to me, where neither John nor Mary could see the implications of anything, right? But they were looking at it as the end of the world. But Jesus is saying to them, you care now. Now you go care. And to care for what we know requires care for what we don't. The world's lives dark in the soil, dark in the dark. We don't know. You never have a child. They say you won't. If you knew what it meant to have a child, you would never do it. And And we just did this. We just rescued what, 3 Pyrenees puppies who just made our lives all for about 2 weeks. Because we didn't predict. I forgot completely what it's like to have a puppy. And we had 3 of them, and it just turned everything upside down. It was insane, but it ended with love. But that's kind of what this is, right? Forbearance is the first care we give to what we do not know. We have to just do what has to be done. We forbear it. That's what love does. It doesn't predict, it just does. And so on. So, again and again, the risky passage from ice to warmth, dark to light. And so that's that moment. Jesus cries out into the darkness, the moment of void and emptiness. You know, we travelers walking in the sun can't see ahead, but looking back, the very light that blinded us shows us the way we came. So we can't see ahead, but we keep going. But when you look back, you can see how it was and what it was, but you turn to go ahead and it's still blinding and dark and you can't see. So by blessing brightly lit, keep going toward the blessed light that yet to us is dark. So in this moment, I think that's the Jesus finally entering into the darkness. The total entering into the darkness. And then Jesus dies. The darkness came over the whole land, and so on and so forth. And again we come and go, changing hands, join, unjoin in love and fear, grief and joy. The circles turn, each one giving into each, into all. Only music keeps us here, which I think is a line that would be worthy of some pondering. But in this image with the Jesus head yielding, and then we turn aside alone. We all die alone. We then turn aside alone and out of the dark, out of the sunlight, gone. So that moment. Jesus is laid in the tomb. This has the feel to me, the art here of the good earth, which is not something to be feared. It's actually our home. It's our ground. It's that from which we are made. So it is a returning. That from this is hell, this is the nightmare from which Christ descended from the cross, from which he also woke and rose, striding godly forth, so free he appeared to Mary to be only a gardener. That's the total, I guess, freedom of givenness to light. Walking about in the new day. And then resurrection itself. The little stream sings in the crease of the hill. It is the water of life. It knows nothing of death, nothing. And this is the morning of Christ's resurrection. The tomb is empty. There is no death. Death is our illusion, our wish to belong only to ourselves, which is our freedom to kill one another. From this sleep may we too rise as out of the dark. Great. Okay, I will stop with that. And so that's what we did. Hopefully, it will do a couple things. One is spiritually help people kind of move from a kind of a vague traditional piety, which I don't say that's what traditional stations teach. It's what we tend to learn. That, oh, this was Jesus' journey and Jesus did that so that we could all be saved, and that God demanded this much violence so that Jesus proving his love for us by enduring so much violence, then could turn the violence of God aside, and then we wouldn't have to bear it. That is an awful traditional sense of Holy Week for a lot of religious people. I saw a cartoon the other day. It was great. It was, oh, Jesus, you know, the image of Jesus knocking on the door?
Oh, yeah.
You know, let me in, you know, and there's a woman inside the door. Why should I let you in? Because I want to save you. And Jesus, and she says, save me from what? And Jesus responds, from what I'm going to do to you if you don't let me in. And that horrible form of piety is oftentimes the way we read Holy Week in the Stations of the Cross. This is God's expressing God's own violence. Hopefully this will communicate this is Jesus undergoing our violence. And not just Jesus undergoing our violence, but we're undergoing our violence, and so is all creation. All right, the messages. Anybody, Jeanette, you want to see other questions or the comments? What do we got?
Well, I'm the only one that was making comments. Sorry.
Oh,
As you were asking questions, I was putting
I see
answers.
George asking for a copy.
Yes, George did ask for a copy. George, what were you asking? A copy of what we're doing? What of the
We
stations or
just
what?
saw, I was so impressed by the drawings. That struck me to a degree more than the words. I thought the Berry poems fit right in, and Jerry wrote well too. I won't say that.
No, it's all about Amy. It's always been all about Amy.
No.
So
I
it's so
just
funny, George, because that's actually what I thought too. And then as Jerry was going through them, I was like, yes, and this, you know, yes.
So,
I mean,
George, we can't give it to you digitally just yet because we are waiting for permission to use the Wendell Berry poems. I've contacted the publisher, and he asked me a bunch of questions, and then I haven't heard from him. So it's been a couple of weeks, but so I mean, we can.
I am patient.
Yeah, I mean, we can share it. It's just you cannot share it online anywhere
Yeah.
until
We have printed on loan. We have 3 sets that are on loan. They're all out right now. And won't get back till after Lent, obviously.
Right.
But you can borrow them. I'm sorry, Amy, go ahead.
Oh, I appreciate you wanting them, for sure. We just need to be, careful.
No, we don't need to get into a
Yeah.
cockfight.
No, not especially going online. But as far as I don't have a problem with you getting a copy of the PDF if as long as it's for just personal use and you don't share it. But I also wanted to just make some comments about the art because I all of the things to me were telling a very personal story about friends. I mean, these were disciples of Jesus, and they were friends. They loved him, and like the Judas and Jesus, I had the kiss being that they were facing each other, just not eyes down, not being able to really look at each other. And I took it as a personal thing that something Judas didn't get what he wanted from Jesus. And maybe he was jealous, maybe it was power or whatever. It just, and we betray our friends, people that we love. Peter, cowardice. He says he loves Jesus and serves him, but as his friend, but then he turns around, how quickly he turns around and acts like, I mean, how many times have we done that sort of, just not to the same level, but, the pilot one, it just is, rather than having Jesus stand before a judge and be judged, Pilate and this, that, you know, the statue is the Greco-Roman statue, but it's behind Jesus. It's behind his back. He's like judging Jesus or tossing him away behind his back, not standing before him as any authority. And it's kind of, and the elephants, if the last part of that poem was that, pitiable because unforgiving. So when you think about like what we do, that yeah, we talk about forgiveness, but are we really capable of forgiveness the way Jesus or the elephants, like the atrocity that was on exhibit below the elephants, and they walk away, the mother and the baby elephant, just I think animals are capable of forgiveness or
More
unconditional
so
love
than
or
we.
whatever. And as Jesus was, but are we? Like the last bit of Wendell's poem is pitiable because unforgiving. And I don't know. I think that I look at these as certainly parallels to what's happening politically or, in the world and with the environment, but also as a personal thing, what we do to each other personally. And, these were friends, Peter, Judas, disciples. So anyway, I just wanted to add that. And hopefully we'll hear from the publisher soon and then decide what to do from there. Thank you. Thanks for your interest, though.
So Amy, we were talking about, I was just talking to my priest. We were talking about that we would probably like to purchase a set once it's approved. Once you get the copyright permissions, we
Mhm.
would like to purchase a set to keep here permanently.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
So,
I mean, it depends on what happens. Like if the publisher says, okay, it's only for educational material, non-commercial. So I don't know. It depends on what the wording is. If
well, it
there's
would
a
be,
difference between your church buying one as opposed to Barnes and Noble. That would be wonderful. But yeah, I mean, I think we do have to be careful, but at the same time, we want to share it. So, and the other thing is, if we get permission from the publisher for non-commercial use, and we produce like a self-published book, like from Lulu or something, that maybe we could try to get it into Wendell's hands, and he owns the copyright. So if he says, do whatever you want with it, then yeah, it would be great to. But I think, these these kind of requests are doable.
thank you. Does anyone have any questions or anything else to add? So Cam said that with everything that's going on in the world and it being Holy Week, it is so moving and beautiful with the poetry being read. She can't unmute right now because of her traffic. Nancy said the work is amazing and it was thrilling to see new faith-based art, and she loves it. Thank you for such powerful work. Greg would like to have copy of the stations too. The beautiful artwork, the poems and reflections are amazing. I would love to be able to spend more time reflecting on them. Does anyone else have anything else that they'd like to add? Edward, did I see your hand?
No, I agree. The artwork was amazing. I mean, Wendell Berry is always amazing, but the artwork was new for us, new for me, and not that I ever doubted, Amy's skill, but I mean, seeing one after another, one wonderful image after another, that was really kind of overwhelming. So
Oh, thank you.
you're welcome.
I will tell you that I don't have any training in this. This was all from art therapy. So you can
Oh,
imagine that that it fits like it's
but history show there have been a lot of great artists who were self-taught. So,
yeah.
yeah.
Well, I have to give credit to my art therapist. He's
Mhm.
she's a wonderful psychologist and does art. So she was the inspiration. Thank you though.
Well, we're pretty much an hour, y'all.
Well, I greatly appreciate you you sharing this with us, and this was perfect day to do this, and yeah, I'm inspired. I'm inspired.
Well, we should see where it goes. Right now, it is really it's hanging in one church camp, and so the one in church camp is 2 plates, an aluminum plate, so that the image is all by itself, and then the text and stuff is by itself. The paper copies are 11 by 17, image on top, text below. So far, I guess truthfully, if we were to install them in different camps or different places, and we might find different ways to produce them, as to neither aluminum nor paper, but something else. But I don't know. I mean, like Amy said, this is all. It's really been only extant for a few months.
So we were talking about at our meeting for the um, Creation Care event of bringing the stations and having them there. So that would be another incentive for people to come to to this retreat to conference that we're having, this event that we're having, so that you can actually see them in person. We are. I would just really like to. I was just telling my priest how I like walking the stations probably a little bit more than I like walking a labyrinth. And because I just don't know why, but anyway, that's what I enjoy. And this would be something very, very cool to have, like some of us who have church gardens and stuff like that, to put the stations out by the church gardens, or even if they're vegetable or community vegetable or pollinator natural habitat, that would be really kind of a cool thing to do, so use it out on the church lands. But here, so we have all kinds of ideas for your work, Amy and Jerry and Mary. So, and Wendell. So, but well, I thank everyone for being here. Does anyone have anything else to add? No? So our next meeting is May 12th. And our speaker is to be announced if we have a speaker. The person that am talking to is not gotten back with me. So we will go for there. We will go from there. But I look forward to having to seeing you all next month, and have a blessed Holy Week and Easter.